Hello everyone. Today I will start my Tiny Sailor's World video playlist. Starting with Titanic, Recreating the Disasters, Episode 1.
Now Titanic is sailing straight towards an iceberg. We are going to go ahead and order hard to starboard. The ship is turning. They have seen the iceberg, but it is too late. Actually, I might have turned too quickly there, and I think I might have saved Titanic.
I think Jesse might have saved Titanic.
Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and in today's video we are back in Tiny Sailor's World, and today we are going to be starting a brand new series. This series is called Recreating the Disasters, where we go into multiple sinking ship disasters, and we talk about them using Tiny Sailor's World. We're going to be recreating these sinkings using the ships in-game, and it's going to be really, really cool. But right now, we are starting out with the RMS Titanic. It's one of the most well-known ship sinkings of all time. And this may have gotten your start into learning about ship history. It definitely did for me. I remember learning it in a history textbook. But yeah, this is the RMS Titanic. We have it right here. And we're actually joined by Jay Killen as well, who's going to be sailing the Carpathia, which will come in handy later. But yeah, let's get started. Alright, so Jay Killen, do you want to tell us what the Titanic was, what it was designed to carry, and what it was doing
the original plan for
voyage?
her.
Yeah, so the Titanic was a ship built by Harland and Wolff Shipyard in Belfast, Ireland. They began construction on her on March 31st in 1909, where her keel was laid in the aero gantry, and they launched the ship in May 31st of 1911, and it took about a year to fit it out. Actually, it took exactly a year to basically fit it out. May 31st was when they basically finished the ship in 1912. And it was designed to be an ocean liner to transport passengers to various ports of calls, and it was under the White Star Line.
Now, Jay Killen, was the Titanic built for the rich and famous?
Not exactly. I mean, there are very expensive cabins that you could purchase, but a lot of the other cabins, like in third class, for instance, they would go on sale for about $15 to $40, which is the equivalence of $170 to $460 today.
So, would you say that the White Star Line wasn't really making their money from these rich passengers? It was really from the immigrant trade.
Yeah, for the most part, because the way Titanic was designed, they originally went for speed at first, so it wasn't until the Oceanic II that the White Star Line switched from primarily focusing on speed rather than going for comfort and luxury, which is interesting because, you know, a lot of passengers actually complained about vibrations, so the White Star Line decided to capitalize off of this and go for luxury and comfort and sacrifice a bit of speed for that.
So yeah, that's very interesting. What's also interesting is that the Titanic wasn't just carrying passengers and cargo, it was also carrying mail, which is the whole reason why it was called RMS, Royal Mail Steamer. Now, obviously, the times are not going to be perfect,
or Royal Mail
Steamer, whatever when the ship departed.
Anyway, back to the video.
It is about 7 o'clock, so I think that's way earlier than the Titanic really departed.
Yeah, the Titanic departed at around noon, but it was actually delayed for about 30 minutes, I believe. I'm not sure the exact time, but this was because of the SS New York that was moored in the berth. And as the Titanic was sailing by, the suction of the propellers actually pulled the steamship New York off of her moorings, and it started swinging towards the Titanic. So thanks to the expertise of Captain Smith, they actually reversed the engines, and it allowed the ship to be pushed away from the Titanic, and the tugs were actually able to come in and resecure the ship.
Alright, so we are steaming ahead, and we are making good time. I think we will be on time for an somewhat accurate sinking. So, yeah, we are going to make our way to New York, and we're going to see if we encounter an ice field there. And yes, we are at Cherbourg, so here we are. Just going to quickly stop, and I am going to anchor the ship. As you can see, the sun is setting on the Titanic, and we are about to depart Cherbourg for the open ocean. Really, in real life, we would be departing for Queenstown, but since that's not in the game, we're just going to go straight to New York. Well, we're going to attempt to make it to New York, and that's going to fail because the Titanic didn't make it to New York. It unfortunately sank. So, let's go. Alright, so we are on the move, but it's not just us. It's also the Carpathia, because I believe you're leaving New York Harbor right now.
Yeah.
Alright, Titanic has departed Cherbourg for the last time, and here we go.
I've left New York, but in reality, it would have left on the same day that Titanic would have left Queenstown.
Now Titanic is sailing straight towards an iceberg. We are going to go ahead and order hard to starboard.
Sorry
The
for the
ship is
background
turning. They
noise.
have seen the iceberg, but it is too late. Actually, I might have turned too quickly there, and I think I might have saved Titanic if I kept turning the ship. But obviously, we're trying to recreate the sinking, so there we go. We are crashing into the iceberg. That is not realistic whatsoever, but
No,
don't
it
worry
is
about it.
not,
We're
my friend
rounding the
Gay.
iceberg, and that basically means we're trying to swing the propellers away, but it didn't really work so well. And we are now beginning to go down. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the ship, and then we are going to activate the sinking simulation, which will accurately sink the ship. Okay, we have now activated the slow mode for sync by simulation.
And if you
So
play
she is now
the
sinking,
Tiny Sailors,
and it's going to take some time.
and you do
But
the Titanic,
the SOS signals or CQD signals
and,
aren't being sent out yet. So
sync by
Carpathia is
simulation,
still on its voyage.
Titanic
It's not
sinks.
really rescuing the Titanic yet.
God
But it will be soon.
slow,
At
just
this
like
point,
in real
there's an
life.
investigation going on. They are having people go below,
and the
inspect the
Centaur
damage,
sinks
see what's going on, and find out how much water is flooding the interior of the vessel. And Jay Killen, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe Thomas Andrews was part of
Just
that.
Yeah,
talking
so it was
to my
Mr. Andrews who
kitty.
went down and actually
Kitty.
inspected the damage, and
Also known
since he
as
was the ship designer, he was
or
basically
kitty.
able to conclude that the
Yeah,
ship was going to sink because
whatever.
there was
Let's get
6
back to the
compartments that
video.
were breached. Not the typical 5, because in reality it was 2 feet into the coal bunker of boiler room 5, which counts as 6 compartments
I
technically.
still think
Alright,
it's
so at this
5
point,
compartments
just
that
a
breached
little
the
bit of the
Titanic
GDAC
to make
portals
her
are
sink.
starting to flood. Yep, she is starting to tilt forward, so I'm not sure, but I think you're still miles out, right?
Yeah, I'm off the coast of Halifax, actually, so I should be somewhat close, I think.
Now, Jake Helen, when the GDAC portholes were underwater, what was going on?
At this point, people were still kind of
I got
getting
a new
situated.
Titanic
A lot of
added.
people were still confused.
Like a
But obviously, at
G-deck.
this point, I think this is when they began preparing the lifeboats. Is just a precaution at the time, because I think at the time they didn't know for sure if the ship was going to sink, because I think Mr. Andrews was still doing some inspections.
Now, ignoring the sunrise that just occurred, the ship is sinking a lot faster now. As we were just talking about that, the F-deck portholes just went under, so she is really starting to sink. Alright, so by this point, the Carpathia has already received the messages.
Sorry
And
for
I
my
don't know, have you
talking.
turned around yet?
And
Yeah, I'm
for
turning
my
towards you.
Alright, so yeah, Titanic is now running out of time, and there are still passengers on the decks.
Number 1.
And there's quite a few boats already in the water. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 boats in the water, and that's the 6th one there. Now, one of the very unfortunate things is that the lifeboats are getting launched, in some cases, half full. And that's because the passengers aren't really willing to get into the boats. And there is still that understanding, or, well, lack of understanding, that the ship is going to sink. People still think the ship is just going to be fine. It's going to get the water pumped out of it, and they'll be on their way very soon. Unfortunately, Titanic is not moving. It's going down. Despite it being daytime, and also the waves being big, and
the funnels would still not be steaming.
The ship is now beginning to lose the well deck and forecastle, so
the ship
not good.
So
distress signals are still going out, and Jake Hillen can kind of
Boilers
talk
and
about
engines.
that.
Yeah, so one thing,
steam
from what I
will be
remember, I
prevented out
believe,
of the boilers
so
to
according
prevent
to the
explosion.
Californian, they did actually see the Titanic and the distress rockets, but I don't think the rockets were being fired properly for signaling distress. I believe it's supposed to be every 5 minutes instead of 3 minutes or something like that. I'm not sure, actually.
The props are now coming out of the water. The ship is just not at the safe angle anymore.
Today.
And there are
And as
people
we all know,
piling
she will
up
never be
all
raised.
over the decks, because some people are still coming up. Some people are just realizing now,
But imagine
you know,
if
maybe I
one
should
day
have gotten on that
Titanic
boat, or
would
tried to
be
get on that
raised.
boat, or tried to do something. And the time has passed. There is no more time to get a boat, because there is no more boats unless you go forward and fight for those last couple collapsibles. So, yeah. From a distance, Titanic is really not looking good. That is not what you want to see a ship angling like. This is well beyond saving the ship now. And the power, you can just see it there. It's beginning to flicker. So you can imagine those wireless signals are beginning to dim out, even for the Carpathia, which is close. Alright, so the storm has passed, and we can tell at this point without waves that the bridge is going under, and the ship has not long to live. There is really no more time. They are struggling to get
She
those
is
collapsible
slowly
boats off the
rising
deck,
as
those
well.
passengers and crew. This is really just not
Until
looking
the
good.
stern was
Water has
splashed
now
down
consumed
back
the bridge. The
onto
first funnel has
water.
collapsed. Alright, so the grand staircase has now flooded. There goes the second funnel, and we all know what's about to happen. The ship is going to...
Sorry about the ad.
I will protect you.
Oh yeah, the Wild Wolf, new Wild Robot movie. Let's
is
skip.
going to
We
break
don't want to watch
into...
the entire
It
ad.
is coming out of the water, and it is just rising into the air, so it is just a matter of time. So as you can see, the stern is coming
That's
out,
a
the
pretty
bow is
cool
going
angle.
down, and that
Boom.
weight is just too much, and the ship splits into...
And
just
apparently
like
it was
There's
on
a bit of
fire,
too, which is interesting. And the
which I
bow
don't
just
think
plunged
happened
to the bottom.
after the breakup.
There it is there. It's hit the bottom, and it's frozen, and there it goes. So there's the bow as a wreck, and the stern now
Water would
sits
not be
above
that
the
deep.
water, beginning to flood
It would
again,
be
and,
deeper.
well, go under. Now, at the time, it was really hard to believe that the Titanic broke in two. It was just such a large object. It was huge. It was an inconceivable thing for this giant ship to break in two. But when you really think about it, it was like a building being stretched beyond its limits. It was eventually going to break, and it did. Alright, so I completely forgot that Jack, Rose, and the Baker are on the stern right now.
Just like the
Which is obviously a nod to the
1997 movie.
97 movie. But there you go.
Yes.
And there it is.
Which
The
is
last
the best
bit of the
Titanic
stern
movie out of all of
slips
them.
under the waves. Well, forever, basically, because Titanic isn't being raised anytime soon, and if it was, it would disintegrate. Now,
Yes.
as you can see, the waters
Titanic
are
would
completely calm,
definitely
and
disintegrate.
just off in the distance is the Carpathia, turning towards us and steaming at full speed just to get to our position. But when they arrive, they will not find any survivors in the water. Any survivors in the water have already been picked up by boats that returned, and the rest would either drift off and be recovered later, or they would never be found. So that
Or
is a very
down to
unfortunate thing that occurred,
hypothermia.
because they couldn't pick them all up with the Carpathia, and plus they were already drifting away by that time, so
Yes.
yeah. So there is Carpathia. They are just behind that iceberg, and look at all the lifeboats.
That was a very narrow miss with that iceberg,
I
which is
know, I
actually
just saw
realistic.
So yeah, there we go. The Carpathia has rescued the remaining survivors, and it is now off to New York. You can see it sailing through the ice field there. And there we are. So if you enjoyed
Okay, guys, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.